The hospital room smelled faintly of antiseptic and hopelessness. Machines beeped softly, marking the rhythm of a life that had been shattered in a single instant. Ethan Carter lay in the bed, his once athletic frame now confined and unmoving from the waist down. Just 6 months ago, he was the man who ran weekend marathons, who chased after his wife in the kitchen playfully, who never sat still for too long. But a car accident on a rainy highway had stolen all of that. Sitting by his bedside was Claire, his wife of 4 years. Her perfectly manicured fingers tapped nervously against her designer handbag. She looked at him, not with tenderness, but with something close to disgust. "This isn't the life I signed up for, Ethan," she said, her voice low but sharp enough to cut through the hum of the machines. Ethan's chest tightened. He'd known for weeks that she was pulling away, but hearing the words spoken out loud still felt like being stabbed. "Claire." His voice cracked, "I need you. I can't do this alone." "You don't understand," she snapped, standing up. "I didn't marry a cripple. I married a man who was strong, who could give me the life I wanted. I can't stay here and watch you waste away in this chair." The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Ethan swallowed hard, searching her face for any sign of compassion. But her eyes were cold. Already somewhere else, and then, she left. Just like that. No backward glance. The sound of her heels echoed down the hallway, each step slamming into Ethan's chest harder than the last. That was the night Ethan hit rock bottom. The woman he thought would stand by him for better or worse had chosen the door when the worse arrived, but it was also the night he made a promise to himself: he would rise again. Not for her. Not for anyone's pity. But because he refused to let the accident define him. The weeks after Claire left felt like a blur. Ethan's mother came by often, bringing home-cooked meals he barely touched. His best friend, Marcus, tried cracking jokes, tried pulling him back into the world, but Ethan would just stare out the window of his small apartment, watching life move on without him. Every morning was the same, the battle of getting out of bed, sliding into the wheelchair, trying not to let frustration boil over when something as simple as reaching the top shelf was impossible. He hated needing help. He hated feeling helpless. One evening, Marcus dropped by with Chinese takeout. "Man, you can't keep sulking like this," Marcus said, tossing a fortune cookie onto Ethan's lap. Ethan didn't look up. "Easy for you to say. You can still walk into a room without everyone staring like you're broken." Marcus sighed and sat across from him. "You're right. I don't know what it feels like. But I do know you. And you've never been the type to quit." Ethan finally cracked open the cookie, more out of boredom than belief. The slip of paper inside read, "Strength grows in the moments you think you can't go on but keep going anyway." He stared at it longer than he meant to. That night, something shifted. He pulled his old laptop onto his lap and began searching. Paralympics. Adaptive sports. Stories of athletes who had rebuilt their lives after accidents worse than his. Wheelchair basketball. Racing. Swimming. For the first time since the crash, a flicker of hope stirred in his chest. 2 months later, Ethan found himself in a local gym that smelled of sweat and rubber. His arms trembled as he pushed the racing wheelchair around the track for the first time. Every muscle screamed, every turn felt clumsy, but he kept going. "Not bad," a voice called out. Ethan looked up to see a middle-aged man with a weathered face and piercing eyes leaning on the fence. "You're wasting energy on the turns," the man said, walking closer. "You gotta lean into it, let the chair glide." "And you are?" Ethan asked, panting. "Daniel Brooks. Former Paralympic coach." The man extended a hand. "You've got fire in your eyes. I like that. Want to train for rail?" Ethan hesitated. The word real sounded almost laughable. But something about Daniel's steady gaze told him this wasn't pity. This was challenge. "Yeah," Ethan said finally. "I want to." And so it began. Dawn workouts. Brutal arm strength sessions. Laps until his shoulders burned. Days where Ethan thought he'd collapse. nights where he nearly quit. But Daniel never let him. "You've already survived the hardest part," Daniel reminded him one morning. "Now prove to yourself that your story isn't over." Training was brutal. Ethan had never known how much strength it took just to push a chair at Olympic speeds. His arms ached, his palms blistered, his shoulders screamed every night. But with every lap, every ounce of sweat, he felt alive again. One morning, as the sun was just beginning to paint the sky, Daniel barked from the sidelines, "Lean. Use your core, Ethan, not just your arms. You're fighting the chair instead of riding it." Ethan pushed harder, veins standing out on his neck. The racing chair hugged the curve of the track, faster this time, smoother. He crossed the line gasping for air but grinning for the first time in months. Daniel smirked. "That's it. That's what champions feel like." It was the first time Ethan allowed himself to believe he could be one. Claire sat in a fancy downtown cafe, her nails freshly done, sipping an overpriced latte. On the surface, she looked like she had moved on, new clothes, new hair, even a new boyfriend, a slick businessman named Derek. But happiness? That was trickier. Derek was charming, but shallow. Conversations with him revolved around money, deals, appearances. And every so often, in quiet moments, Claire's mind wandered back to Ethan. To his goofy laugh. To the way he used to listen, really listen, when she spoke. One evening, as Derek scrolled endlessly on his phone beside her, Claire opened Instagram. Her jaw tightened when she stumbled on a post, camera with flash. Ethan, sweaty, in a racing wheelchair, arm raised in triumph after finishing a local charity race. Caption: "Nothing can stop a determined heart. On to the next challenge." Her throat tightened. She almost dropped her phone. He looked alive, strong, happy. Without her, for the first time, doubt crept in. Had she given up too soon? Back on the track, Ethan wasn't just racing anymore. He was winning. Local events, regional heats, slowly, his name began to circulate. Journalists started taking interest. One day, after a grueling practice, Marcus showed up waving a flyer. "Dude, look. Trials for Team USA. This is your shot." Ethan held the paper with shaking hands. His heart thudded. Him? On the biggest stage, Daniel slapped his back. "You're ready. Believe it." The stadium was buzzing. Athletes from across the country, each with their own scars, their own battles, lined up in sleek racing chairs. Ethan rolled into position, nerves coiled tight in his chest. The gun cracked, and he flew. Arms pumping, teeth gritted, the roar of the crowd blurring into silence as he focused only on the finish line. Seconds later, he crossed first. He couldn't breathe, couldn't believe it. He was going to the Paralympics. Claire thought she had everything she wanted. Derek took her to fancy restaurants, bought her jewelry, and paraded her at business dinners like she was an accessory. At first, it felt like an upgrade, the kind of glamorous life she thought she deserved. But glamour fades fast when the heart is empty. Derek was always closing a deal, barely listening when she spoke. When she tried to talk about dreams or feelings, he'd wave her off with, "Babe, can we not do this now?" Nights were the worst. Claire would lie awake beside him, staring at the ceiling, her chest tight. She had thought money and status would fill the void, but instead, it felt like she had traded warmth for cold marble, and Ethan haunted her. She remembered the way he used to smile at her after a long day, the silly faces he'd make when she was upset, the way he'd hold her like she was the most precious thing in the world. She had thrown that away because he couldn't walk. The guilt gnawed at her. One afternoon, she opened Instagram again. Ethan's face was everywhere, sports blogs, local news reposts, motivational quotes with his photo attached. He wasn't just surviving, he was thriving, and worst of all, he never once mentioned her. Not a single word. As if she had never existed, Claire slammed her laptop shut, fighting tears. For the first time, she realized she had left him, but he had left her too. The day of the Paralympic finals, Claire was at home, alone. Derek was away on another business trip, his texts short and perfunctory. She flipped through channels absent-mindedly until she froze. There he was. Ethan, dressed in his sleek racing uniform. Muscles carved from months of grueling training, jaw set in determination. The announcer's voice boomed, and here comes America's rising star, Ethan Miller, competing in the men's 400-meter wheelchair sprint. An incredible story of perseverance and grit, from a tragic accident to a shot at Paralympic gold. Claire's hands trembled as she gripped the remote. She couldn't look away. The camera zoomed in on Ethan's face. He looked calm. Strong. Nothing like the broken man she had walked out on. The gun fired. Ethan launched forward like lightning, arms pumping, veins bulging, wheels cutting the track with precision. The crowd roared as he pulled ahead. Claire's heart pounded in sync with each push. For a moment, she forgot everything, forgot her mistakes, forgot Derek, and she was just there, watching the man she once loved with every fiber of her being. He crossed the finish line, first place, gold medal. The stadium erupted. Tears streamed down Claire's face before she even realized it. Ethan lifted his arms in victory, tears glistening in his own eyes as the American flag was draped over his shoulders, and in that moment, Claire understood the full weight of her decision. She had left a man who wasn't broken, she had left a man who was destined to soar. The stadium was still thundering with cheers when a reporter caught up with Ethan, gold medal glinting against his chest. Ethan Miller. The journalist beamed, microphone trembling with excitement. From tragedy to triumph, how does it feel to be a Paralympic champion? Ethan took a breath, sweat dripping from his temples. His voice was calm, steady, but filled with fire. Honestly? It feels like proof. Proof that life doesn't end when you're knocked down. You get back up, maybe in a different way than before, but you rise. Every setback is just the start of a comeback. The crowd roared again. And what drove you during those hard months of training? The reporter pressed. Ethan's eyes glistened under the bright lights. He looked up toward the stands for a moment, as though gathering strength from something unseen. I was driven by the simple belief that I still had purpose. That my story wasn't finished. I wanted to show people, anyone facing darkness, that they are still enough. That they still matter. Claire clutched the edge of her couch cushion, her heart twisting. He wasn't talking about her. Not once. Not even a whisper of the woman who had been his wife, who had left him when life got hard. No. Ethan's story no longer included her. The reporter smiled. And now, Ethan, what's next for you? Ethan held his medal for a moment, his thumb brushing the cool metal. Then he smiled, a real, unburdened smile Claire hadn't seen in years. What's next? Living. Helping others believe in themselves. And maybe, he added with a light laugh, celebrating with a lot of pizza tonight. The stadium erupted again. Claire broke. Tears streamed down her face. He wasn't bitter. He wasn't broken. He had built an entirely new life, one brighter than anything she could have imagined. And she wasn't a part of it. For 2 days after the broadcast, Claire couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ethan, strong, determined, alive in a way she had never thought possible. Her phone screen glowed in the dark as she scrolled through every headline. Ethan Miller, America's new Paralympic hero. From wheelchair to gold medal, an unstoppable comeback. The man who refused to quit. Each article praised him, every photo showed him beaming with pride, medal shining against his chest. And not one word mentioned her. Finally, with trembling fingers, Claire typed out a message. Ethan. It's me. I saw you on TV. I'm so proud of you. I never stopped caring. Could we maybe talk? She hit send before she could stop herself. 4 hours, nothing. The silence was worse than any rejection. Then, late the next afternoon, her phone buzzed. It was from Ethan. Claire, I don't think there's anything left to say. You left when I needed someone the most. The man you saw on TV, I became him without you. Please don't reach out again. Her throat tightened. She whispered the words aloud, as if hearing them would make them less brutal. Please don't reach out again. The message was like ice water poured over her heart, but Claire wasn't ready to give up. She convinced herself he was just angry, that if she explained, maybe he would soften, so she did the one thing she knew was risky. She went to see him. Ethan was leaving a Sports Foundation event when she appeared in front of him. Clutching her purse like a lifeline, "Ethan, please," she begged, her voice trembling. "I just need you to listen." He froze, surprised, then his jaw tightened. Around them, reporters and fans were snapping photos, whispering, "Claire," he said evenly, "this isn't the place." She reached for him, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. I was scared, I didn't know how to handle what happened," but Ethan's eyes were steady, unflinching. "You left, Claire. You didn't stumble, you didn't hesitate, you left. And when you did, you told me with your actions that I wasn't worth the fight." Her lips trembled. "I thought I couldn't handle it. But now," Ethan shook his head. His voice rose, clear enough for the nearby cameras to catch. "Now doesn't matter. You weren't there when I needed you. And you don't get to claim me now that the world is cheering." The silence after his words was deafening. Reporters exchanged glances, pens scratching rapidly. Claire felt the heat of humiliation burn across her face. For the first time, she realized she wasn't just losing Ethan privately. She was being shown, publicly, that the chapter was closed. Ethan adjusted the strap of his bag, gave her one last look, firm, but not cruel, and walked away. She stood frozen as the cameras clicked, her tears glistening under the lights. That night, Claire didn't scroll through headlines or watch Ethan's interviews. She sat alone, in silence, replaying his words, "You don't get to claim me now." It was the moment she finally understood, real love isn't proven in victory, it's tested in hardship. And she had failed that test. From then on, Claire lived differently. At work, she volunteered to mentor new hires instead of mocking them. On the street, she stopped herself from judging strangers and sometimes even offered a helping hand. One afternoon, she saw a young woman struggling to push her father's wheelchair up a steep ramp. Without hesitation, Claire stepped in, gripped the handles, and helped push until they reached the top. The girl thanked her with shining eyes. Claire smiled weakly. It didn't erase her past, but it was a start. Ethan continued his rise as a beloved Paralympian and motivational figure. His life a symbol of resilience and strength. Claire, though shut out from his story, carried his lesson forever. Love is proven by staying, not by returning when it's convenient. The end. My name is Temille Deebs. Please subscribe and make sure to click on the notification button to know when we upload a new video. Also like, share and comment your thoughts. Thank you, and I will see you in my next video.